If you're a nurse and you don't think you're making enough money in 2025, and you're probably wondering if moving to Northern California is a good idea, after watching all these videos online about nurses making over $100 an hour in California, well, I'm going to be talking to you about that in this video because I've been in California now with my wife, Monica, who's also a nurse, for the last 8 years. We moved here in 2017. We were making about $50 an hour in New York City before we moved. And my first job in California was at Sutter Roseville. Roseville is a suburb in Placer County, which is a county that's adjacent to Sacramento County. And Sacramento is about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the day and depending on the traffic, from San Francisco. And if you've watched any of our videos, you would know our reasoning behind why we chose to move to Roseville as opposed to San Diego or San Francisco. But when we first moved here, there were homes that were 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, or 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms selling for $400,000. The apartment that we rented when we first moved to Roseville was $1,600 a month for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in a community that had 2 swimming pools, a tennis court, and various other amenities. While we were living in New York City, we were paying $2,500 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment that was 800 square feet. It was a walk up to the 4th floor with no other amenities. So when we found that in California, we thought it was a no-brainer that this was going to be the city that we were going to move to. But the first thing we needed to find out was what was the pay going to look like for us? Because we had heard so many wonderful things from my friend that the pay here was much higher than it was for us in New York City. So go back to the previous videos that I've made about this topic. I ended up getting a job at a hospital called Sutter Roseville Medical Center. My starting salary there, with about 4 years of experience at the time in an ER, was $65 an hour as a night shift nurse. I was working 3 days a week, and it was more than the $50 an hour that I was making in New York City. So for us, it was an absolute no-brainer to move to a city where our cost of living was going to be less and our pay was going to be $15 more per hour. That was in 2017. Now, we're in 2025. My pay is currently $110 per hour. I don't work for Sutter Roseville anymore. Monica, my wife, who's also a nurse, is a per diem nurse. She works on a tele floor, she works night shift, and her pay is $142 an hour. So, as you can see, in just a span of 8 years, we've managed to collectively more than double our salaries. And last year, I created a coaching program to coach nurses on their move to Northern California and to let them know which steps they should take to maximize their income here. But the problem I see with nurses who are looking to move to Northern California is that they think that it's going to be easy for them to get a job when they move here. But that is absolutely not the case. It took me 8 months of applying almost every single time I saw a job posting for the emergency department to finally land a job in the hospital system that I currently work in. And Monica applied for over 300 positions before she ended up getting a job in the same hospital system. And she had to go for a total of 5 different interviews at 5 different hospital systems in order to get that job. Now, I say all of this because I want you to understand how challenging it actually is to get a job up here. And not only is it challenging for a seasoned nurse to get a job here, but it's even more challenging for a new grad to get a job. And the reason for that is because new grads are applying for these higher paying hospitals like smaller community hospitals don't even exist. So what happens during the enrollment periods of these new grad programs is that you have thousands of new grad applicants who are applying for jobs at places like Kaiser Permanente, UC Davis, Stanford, UCSF, and various other hospitals that are high-paying hospitals. And not just high-paying hospitals, these are the highest-paying hospitals in the entire country. So when you have 2,000 nurses who are applying for the same jobs, and only 100 of these nurses get jobs offered, that's only 5% of the new grads who are applying for these hospitals that end up getting a job. And they continue to do these things without opening themselves up to the possibility of applying for jobs in places that really need nurses, like the smaller community hospitals. I've always said, and this is the same thing that I did when I landed my first job, is that if you are a new grad, you need to keep your options open. I ended up getting a job at a hospital that paid me $37 an hour back in 2012 when I first became a nurse. And since then, my income has grown exponentially. but it only happened because I was desperate to get a job. I wanted to work for a place that was willing to give me the opportunity and the chance that these bigger hospitals weren't willing to give me. And I know I've said in the past that nurses should not be accepting these lower paying jobs, but the reality is we might have no choice but to do that in order to get to a point where we have that 1 year of experience under our belt and we're able to apply for these higher paying hospitals. I worked in that hospital paying me $37 an hour for 1 year, and after I hit that 8-month mark, I was already applying for that higher paying hospital. By the time I reached my 1 year anniversary in that lower paying hospital, I ended up getting a job offer in the higher paying hospital. So that's the recommendation that I give new grads. Now for the seasoned nurses, the same thing is going to apply to you, but in a different way. Obviously, you're not competing against 2,000 new grads when you're applying for jobs, but you need to keep your options open. Kaiser Permanente is not the only hospital you should be applying to. Sutter Roseville will pay a nurse with about 10 years of experience $100 an hour. That's still pretty damn good when you compare it to other hospitals in the nation. UC Davis, same thing. UC Davis will pay nurses up to $100 or more per hour. UC Davis is located in the city of Sacramento. Sacramento has a lower cost of living than San Francisco and many other parts of California where the cost of living is ridiculous, like Stanford, where the average home price is about $3 million. So at the end of the day, what you guys need to be doing is an all of the above approach. You need to be willing to apply to all hospitals. You need to be willing to message recruiters if that's what it's take. Find them on LinkedIn. This is something that a lot of nurses are doing now, but it's worth a shot. And don't just use LinkedIn. If you have friends, if you have former coworkers who moved to California, reach out to them. And if you want a job at a place like Kaiser Permanente, don't just apply for Northern California. You can apply to Southern California as well. And once you're in the hospital system, you can transfer to Northern California where the pay is anywhere from 30% to 60% higher than it is in Southern California. And as it relates to Kaiser, you can also consider other states like Oregon, Washington, Georgia, Hawaii, and many other states that have Kaiser facilities. Once you're in this system, you're able to transfer into the systems that are located in Northern California. And when it comes to the pay will continue to increase because the unions in Northern California are some of the strongest unions in the entire nation. These nurses do not budge when it comes to making sure that their raises are competitive with the rate of inflation and not any less. That is the reason why so many nurses are coming in droves to Northern California from other parts of the country and from other parts of California. So going back to answering the question at the beginning of the video, is moving to Northern California still worth it? Absolutely. But you need to be willing to accept the fact that it's going to take time and it's going to be extremely challenging. I know nurses who have applied for hundreds of jobs before they landed their first job. And if you can get a travel gig as a nurse, specifically with companies that contract with these higher paying hospitals, you will have a higher likelihood of getting into these hospitals as permanent staff than nurses who have not previously worked in these institutions. So with that being said, are you one of these nurses that are trying to get into Northern California? Have you applied to multiple jobs? And if so, how many jobs have you applied to? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you ended up getting a job in Northern California, let me know how many jobs you applied to before you got a job here. Let me know how much money you make per hour. Also, download our app, Map My Pay, so you can compare the nursing salary in your city and the cost of living to over 1,000 cities in the US. And if you like this video and you want more videos like it, then let me know in the comment section below. And make sure you watch this video here.